Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crucial Conversations about Cognitive Diversity, brought to you by the 2E Media and 2E Centre for Research and Professional Development. My name is Maria Kennedy, and I have the pleasure of being your host. I'm a mom, educator, and a change maker. Hello, everyone, who has had the pleasure of working globally with an array of different students and their families. So today I have with me two guests, not one, but I have two. I am super special today. In honor, so this week I had the honor of being a panelist for SENG as they launched their Neurodiversity Awareness Week. That kicked off on Monday in Tustin, and it was wonderful to meet and discuss with people their struggles and the resources that are available to them. We've also created a video resource called An Animal School, A Tale of Gifts, which is available on YouTube. And I will be popping in the link to that so that you can all check it out. So today we have a really unique opportunity to discover the importance of finding and pursuing a passion, and how this can really be a game changer, not only for you, but also for the 2E people in your life. So, before we delve into today's topic, I'm delighted to share today's conversation with two amazing neurodiverse people. They're joining us from England. Obviously, that's my home and I love it. And I am hoping that the weather there is better than the weather here in not so sunny California. First of all, I'd really like to thank them both for making the adjustments in their schedule to join us, not only because of the time difference, but also because of the clock changes as we sprung forward here in California on Sunday. So I'm delighted to welcome my first guest is Charlotte Valeur. So please, Charlotte, turn on your camera and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Danish originally, but have lived in the UK since '91. So apparently I'm now sounding foreign both in Denmark and England. For that, I'm autistic and ADHD as well, late diagnosed. I'm a banker of background. And are now mainly serving on a variety of boards and working in governance.
That's wonderful. Well, it is my honor to have you as a guest, Charlotte, trust me. And hey, I got a twofer. So I have the amazing Giles Valeur Adu. So Giles, please turn on your camera and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm an international DJ and producer. I've been doing it for 4 years now. I got diagnosed with autism when I was 13, and it's been such an incredible journey in music, and one that's been made that little bit more special by being neurodiverse.
Awesome. So I know most people think that being neurodiverse is a disadvantage. And obviously we're still in a world where we're facing people who just haven't managed to open their minds to the talents and gifts that neurodiverse people bring to the table. So Giles, you found out at 13. What did that feel like?
This happened in 2013, so I didn't really know, as I was quite young. I was only 13 years old, so I didn't really know what it meant. The people around me didn't really know what it meant, so I kind of pushed it down and just quote unquote forgot about it, tried to just move on to my life until I was at a place where I had a bit more self-understanding, self-awareness, kind of knew myself better just in general before I start thinking about that. But since I've come to an understanding of it and found my own self-identity, it's something that I'm really happy to have. Actually, it benefits me in so many ways. And yeah, it's really opened my eyes to what I'm capable of and how far I can really push it. And I don't think I'd be able to be as successful as I am now if I wasn't neurodiverse.
Beautiful. See, parents, stop worrying. Our babies come to the table with so many gifts and talents. They just need to harness them. And I think that's really
Exactly, yeah.
important, right? Is identifying where our strengths are and what we're really good at, and then just going for it. Charlotte, your story's slightly different because you didn't find out until later in life.
No, I was 52 before I was actually diagnosed. 50 when I realized I was probably autistic. So an old friend of mine asked me if I thought I was autistic, and I was like, I don't know why you're asking me that question. And he said, well, you seem to have, autistic kind of people around you, and maybe there's a reason for that. I was like, well, I'll just test myself to see. So I did one of these online. There's a test from Cambridge University where you answer 50 questions, and it came out and said, you score above the clinical threshold, you should get diagnosed. I was like, oh, what kind of message is that sitting there on my screen? So I then did another 10 tests, as you do, and I got my children to do the test with me. I'm thinking maybe I'm answering these questions wrongly, but it didn't change. It just stayed the same. In fact, Giles was positively teasing me and saying, you're actually more autistic than I am, Mom. I was like, okay, thanks. Well, we're looking at this. So I had to think about this for a couple of years, because when I then looked back, I could recognize so many things. And I thought, gosh, this was never seen. I did not do well in school at all. I was bullied relentlessly. I would literally come home with blood nose, or people had thrown stuff at me. It was strange how it's like people can feel that you're different. I didn't really talk very much until I was about 12, because silence felt good. And I sat in treetops a lot of the time, not so much because I loved climbing trees, but because no one else was up there, and that was also quite comfortable. I wrote down number plates in a little book because I liked the lines of letters. I mean, it was quite obvious, right? When you look back, I lined my dolls up. I didn't play with them. I just had them on a line. But girls as well, girls are not really recognized, not even now, and even then it wasn't at all. So that was a lot, having to look through your life with a different lens. And I'm still having times when I go, oh, that was maybe, why that situation went this way or that way. So I was lucky to fall into a career that I loved. And through the passion for my work, I was in banking. I became a stock exchange trader when I was very young. And I just loved that whole environment. Last year, I also got diagnosed with ADHD, and that probably helped me in a very fast moving environment. It certainly didn't help me as a child, but it helped me in my career and with things that I'm passionate about, because I can hyper focus, but there's a lot of other things I don't focus on at all. I don't watch much television. I don't read fiction. I never read fiction. I just like facts. I read about corporate governance at night. It sounds really dull, but for me, it's really interesting. And it means that you become an expert in that field. So I was offered a professorship in governance a couple of years ago, and I thought, gosh, I haven't even gone to university, and now someone wants to make me a professor. I'll have that.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, so you didn't go to university, but now you can be a professor there. Yeah, I'm so glad that you read those books on governance, because I can't do it. I'm not much on fiction reading either, but oh no, those ones are a little too dry for me. So late in life came the diagnoses, but you took action when somebody asked you, and that started your brain thinking. So would you then recommend then for adults who may be wondering, is going and taking a test, an online test, a good idea? And if so, which one would you recommend?
It seems to me, from now knowing a lot of neurodivergent people around the world, I've launched an Institute of Neurodiversity a year and a half ago with a group of other neurodivergent people, and we have over 10,000 members and supporters there now. And there is definitely patterns that you can recognize throughout. And one pattern I see very clearly is that it runs in families. It's luckily they haven't found the gene, because if they had, we might have been aborted before we were born. So we're not going to concentrate on that piece at all. But it runs in families. So I think if you have neurodivergent children, it's very appropriate if you self-test. And that could be any of the neurodivergencies, dyslexia, dyspraxia, ASD, ADHD, ADD, whatever it might be. It could be something you don't really see in yourself. But once you do these tests, so the autism test I took is called Autistic Quotient. It's from Cambridge University. And it seems to be the most balanced one I can find with regards to gender, to make it more neutral, that it's not about interests for men. I mean, we're not all white men in technology, right? That's not so well understood, but we're really not. I know autistic people that are social workers, that are bakers, that are hairdressers, that are lawyers, bankers, CEOs, board members. I mean, we are literally everywhere. We're just like hidden. And I think now my generation are finding out through our children, because our children get diagnosed and you start looking at yourself and go, this all feels a bit familiar. And then for me, when I got the autism diagnosis, it really explained a lot. But there was still something it didn't explain. I have this incessant brain that won't leave me alone, is on all the time. And so wake up at 7 in the morning and it's on. And if there's someone next to me, they will be talked to.
Nice.
Well, so that's not great if you're someone who wakes up a bit later in the morning. And it drives me. And I thought this drives me constantly to not sit still and not do. I remember actually one of my children said to Mom, you never sit down and watch television with us. Can you do that? And I was like, I was trying to sit in the sofa and watch television. And I don't know, it doesn't work for so long. Then I just got to get up and do something else, or my brain just goes off, or I don't know. That didn't seem to be the typical autistic trait. So that is the pieces where they say that's the ADHD. It was a long diagnosis. It took long, hundreds of questions and time with all kind of different psychologists and what have you. But it was worthwhile just to know yourself better, I feel. And also for all of us, there was one thing I was slightly concerned with was, why are all the old neurodivergent people like, why are all the old autistic people and ADHD? It's so like, what, do we not exist? We know we exist, but where are we? And there are some studies in the US I found that said that in closed institutions for elderly people, 40% autistic. That specific study found a lot of them heavily sedated, or maybe even in straitjackets. So because if we say get dementia, our autistic traits will come up much more intensely. And I think that could be a problem if you have neurotypical carers around you and they will just want you to, be easier to be around. And so I would like my children to have at least a piece of paper that said, look, our mom is sensitive in certain areas and you've got to take that into account with her care.
Definitely. So it's definitely worth checking out and making sure.
I think so.
Giles, you are an international DJ. You are hot stuff. I've heard some of your beats. You are truly amazing. So how'd you get into being a DJ? Where did that passion come from?
Well, it came from just constantly trying different passions that I have. I started initially with cybersecurity, and that was a bit too technical, a bit too much maths involved and physics and stuff. Then I went into fashion, because I really did enjoy fashion. I started at university there, but the course wasn't quite for me. The lecturers just weren't up to the level that I needed, really. I needed some passion and drive. It just felt a bit dry and sort of, they didn't put enough effort into it. So I left that and then went into music production. I'd already been DJing for a couple of years just because I've been going to raves since I was 18. And then I thought, it looks fun doing what these DJs are doing. Let me try it. So I tried it. And then eventually I got my own. And then I was just addicted ever since. But yeah, it did come after a lot of years of trying a lot of other things. Like when I was younger, I did a lot of sport. I did athletics. I did football. I did rugby. I played instruments. I finally ended up with DJing, and then that was the one I was like, yes, I've found it. This is what I want to do. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Is just, even if you only like it a little bit, that can develop into something more that happens deeper, because you do something once or twice, you don't, it might feel good then, but you haven't even scratched the surface of it. So I think giving anything a good go, even if it doesn't amount to anything, at the end of the day, you've still learned something, you've still applied yourself. So I think any learning is good learning, whether or not it amounts to anything. At the end of the day, something someone else might not know. So yeah.
I love that. So, oh my gosh, you did so many things. So
Yeah.
sport and fashion and music and art. I mean, good grief, so many things. I know as parents, we often worry though, so I guess we're wrong in this belief. I guess there's this belief that young people should decide on a passion and stick with it. Well, obviously you didn't. So
Yeah.
It's okay to keep exploring and to do things a few more times to see if it works and see if you're comfortable. I love what you said about the fashion course. The teacher was not passionate enough. It did not work for you. And then you left. And I think that's important. I think it's important to know, for us all to know, that it's okay to stop. Because I think we have this notion in our heads about failure, and that failure is not a good thing. And just because the child decides not to do it, that they've somehow failed. But what I heard you say was that you loved fashion, you went into the course, but the teacher couldn't meet your needs, and so you left. And that's a conscious decision. And I'm so happy that you're able to articulate why you left. And so that's not failure. And I think we just need to be more aware of the fact that we can try lots of things. We may have an interest in them, but it doesn't actually mean that that's going to be the final thing that takes us over the rainbow to the pot of gold, maybe.
Yeah.
It's March.
I also think having the support from my parents in that transitional phase definitely made it easier. If I had to go into this completely on my own, this is the issue to say, fine, just go and do that, just don't talk to me about it. That would have been a completely different, I would have been going in with a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but I felt like I have to do this rather than I want to do this, I do think that, I'm not going to pretend that, I just completely forgot about everything else. At the start of this music career thing, I did feel that there was a big weight on my shoulder to make sure this all goes right and goes well. But after 2 or 3 months, I was like, yeah, this is definitely going to work. I found the thing, and then all that weight was just lifted. But that did, again, come through success and a lot of hard work. So, yeah.
Cool. So, Charlotte, how did you support him? He kept on changing his mind. Did it not drive you insane?
No, for me, I just wanted to offer him as many different things as he would like to have. That was so. I have 3 children. I mean, it's the same for all of them. I think the more you expose your child to different things, the better you give them a foundation to choose from, because it's not for us to choose for our children, right? It's we are the coaches to help them experience as much as they can. So he started piano at 4, French horn at 7, drums. You played the drums. Because he clearly had a musical talent. You did singing classes, and they said, well, he's musically gifted, but we couldn't get to the thing that stuck. So it was just, and then there was a break. You traveled, didn't you, around the world for 4 months with us, with a Danish school, a group of, and that was a great experience as well in culture. It was hard for you, but you did it, and you came back with a huge amount of new cultural experience and knowledge about yourself. And then we just have to try it. No, I don't. I just love to see my children keep trying, right? And then I think it's for us to support them to do that. I have a lot of parents saying to me, what do you do as a parent of a neurodivergent child? And I was like, you just got to make them survive the first 20 years, right? First 20 years are pretty important basis for the rest of your life. You try to, as hard as you can, to love them unconditionally for who they are and what they are, right? And respect and accept their wishes to do things. Listen, everyone has, ideas about what they want, but that doesn't mean they don't change it. And I think I was just happy to see Giles constantly explore new things and be happy to try new things. I thought that was great. I mean, coming from Denmark, it's maybe easier. We're very sort of free with our children, for our children to grow up as individuals, while the English system is much more rigid. I remember I spoke Danish to my children, and the English headmistresses told me I had to stop doing that because it would delay their English. And I was like, what? So I can give my children a gift of having 2 languages, and you're telling me I shouldn't do that? So that doesn't sit so well with me, right? Giles does speak Danish fluently, but that was all his own doing later in life. He decided that's it. So he now speaks it, reads it, and writes it. And for that, I'm tremendously proud that he managed to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of questions popping in. I'm sorry, Mary, what is the place she's talking about? I don't know what that was. So I think it may have related to when you were talking about Cambridge and the online course.
Cambridge, yeah, maybe it's called Autistic Quotient from University of Cambridge. They do both for children and for adults, and it's quite researched. They used it actually they had like 750,000 people randomly answering that questionnaire, just randomly in different European countries. And it came out that 11.4% scored above the clinical threshold. Wow. Out of a random 750,000 people. Of course, you can then say are people who think they might be more likely to take it. We don't know, but we know that it was. I see all the invisible people, all of my generation and up, and younger as well. We're very invisible. I think it's a certain subgroup of our community that's visible, and the rest of us are invisible.
Okay, awesome. So, yes, it was definitely where to get tested. So can you just give the name again for Mary?
It's called Autistic Quotient. If you Google it, I think Psychology Today have it, and you can just go through them and it gives you the score, or go into the University of Cambridge Autistic Quotient and it will come up as well. Perfect. And that's also for ADHD ones, but there's so many random ones. We've had it almost as a game in the family to do random tests of ourselves now and then. So, it's Google takes you far with the self-test for sure. And it's just a good pointer.
Perfect. Does finding your passions have to take years and trial and error?
I think that's definitely part of it. Some people get lucky and just find it after the first 1 or 2 things they try. They just love it. But again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as they're enjoying themselves, they're learning, they're exploring new areas. I don't think it necessarily matters how long it takes. My uncle Herman, he started doing IT. He was 35, I think he was more.
I think so, yeah.
35 or 37. So there is literally no right or wrong way to do it necessarily. I think the number one thing is support, really, because that's what will keep them active and wanting to try more things if they feel they're being supported all the way.
Definitely. Yes, I think you're right. Support is definitely a key, and everybody's journey is different. So it really is hard to know. On my journey, I started out, I wanted to be an air stewardess. I loved languages, so I wanted to speak lots of them and travel around the world. I never became an air stewardess. I did speak French and Spanish fluently for a while, and now I no longer. And most people will say possibly I don't even speak English correctly. So who knows about the language bit? But I did do the traveling around the world part, and so that one stuck. But yeah, I think everybody's journey is definitely different. I started out, my passion was always theatre, and now I don't do any of that. So that's, who knows. Asked, will you cover how to help a highly gifted son who has not adopted a passion since he's been virtual learning? He has been overly addicted to buying and selling ballad songs on Instagram and playing video games. he is still doing A work. So obviously he's doing great in school, and his, I think it's his mom is concerned about where he might find a passion.
Well, for me, it took me until I was 20 really to start music. So I was like long out of school before I found my passion. Again, there's so many different things you can do within video games. Personally, at my university, they have game design, they have a sound design course, like doing the actual sound for the games. They have, well, I'm not actually sure what other ones they have, but this is quite a small one just in Bristol. But yeah, there's a lot of different avenues you can go down within that. If he's into buying and selling, there's also the business side of games that you can go into. So yeah, I think just start simple, I think, is the best way. Just look at the things that are obviously he's into now. And then sometimes if you do, you know, by doing research into those things, you can find other things that maybe we either didn't know or didn't consider. So I think start simple, start small, see how that goes, and then hopefully that can open some doors for further consideration.
I love that.
A lot of us are also sort of automatically looking for wisdom, looking for knowledge, and I often call us sort of knowledge seekers. So even if your son is online doing that, might be other things he's doing as well as that. I remember, Jasmine, one day you came down and you've been watching how to cut fruit in special ways all half of the night. But there's so much different knowledge you can draw on from online, and I think it's harder for us parents to fully follow how the young people are using it, but also what the future could be in it. I'm on the board of a construction company, and we came out of board meeting today. We spent most of the meeting talking about digital engineers, but actually all engineers need to be digitally savvy now, because all engineering and construction is going into being fully digitalized. So whether we like it or not, being online is going to be an understanding that world. It might be at this stage that he's not exploring other things. So it might be he is exploring other things, but you're not seeing when he is, maybe, I don't know. But it's not necessarily bad to do that. And will he still do it when he's 30 or 25? I don't know how old he is now, right? But sometimes they go through phases, and I think we all do. And they pass, and they grow up, and they will be okay. I think, again, just especially through the teenage years, we shouldn't underestimate the impact of hormones as well to where we want to go and what we want to do. I mean, I engaged in weird stuff when I was a teenager, and then I became a banker, and then suddenly things were okay, right? It really, some of it could be luck as well, but it's about trying other things. But I think as long as we're teenagers, that's probably not the time to push it too hard, because it could feel like you don't trust that we will find our own way. We have to have a level of trust whilst guiding, and say, try a bit of this, try a bit of that, and see where it goes, but without blame when it doesn't have an interest, and then see how we build it as it gets further, doing small things that pushes independence and independent decision making as well. I mean, I made my children wash their own clothes, and not that they were very happy about it, but from sort of 12, 13, 14, I was like, here's your own laundry bag, you've got to wash it. I think guys always found a clever way to get me to do it for him anyway. but even that is a skill, right? Even that is a skill. So we should not, underestimate any of the skills that the children learn from what we put their way.
I love that. So my young man, he has done all of his laundry since he was 12, because he was interested in how the washing machine worked. And so I took the opportunity when he asked about how the washing machine worked to teach him how to do his own laundry. And from then he ran with it, to the extent that, so he played rugby, and he would come in with his kit, and he would literally wash one shirt and a pair of shorts and socks and run a full cycle. And I never said a word, and I just let him do it, because what
he was washing.
right? I'm going, what was the point of waiting for there to be a full load? Just let him do it. And the thing is, then he went away at school. He got a basketball scholarship and went away at 16. He was the only kid of the children that went who knew how to use the washing machine. And so he had to teach all the other kids how to use it, because at 16, they didn't know. By then, he'd been doing his own laundry for 4 years. So I went, hey, mommy did something right. And he took
risk doing too much, right? As parents, I think we do have a risk. I mean, especially when we're parents of neurodivergent children, because all the books and all the research that comes at us is so awful that it's like you're thinking, oh my God, this is the end of the world, right? And I was just like, no, these books are wrong, right? These books have a whole library about autism, and all of those books are wrong on so many levels. And we're trying to change this narrative, because for parents, this is very confusing. We love our children so much and want the best for them. But actually, from what we read, we're going, oh, wow, is my child never going to live independently? So, I mean, Giles has lived independently, what now, for 5 years, 5 years. And, you know, it's fine. He cooks his own food. He does his own things. You know, it's, but from the books I read, that should never have happened. And I'm just like, this something is materially wrong here. And I think as parents, we have to object to that and to really look at it's been pushing some of us into doing something with our children we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I think we're definitely conditioned into the what our children can't do or what our children won't ever be able to do. I was blessed in October that I went to an event that a young man called Johnny Agar, who has cerebral palsy, was speaking at. And what his parents said was that the doctor, when he told them that their son had cerebral palsy, gave them a choice. He said, here's a stack of books that will tell you all the things your child cannot do or will never do. He said, so you can go read those, or you can just go love your child. And mom said, as hard as that was, they took the choice to go love their child. And as a result, they've never put any limits on this young man, and he is truly amazing. They said he would never walk, but he does. He's walked marathons. He's done all kinds of things that he's not supposed to be able to do. Yeah. And so I'm going, that's because his parents, just like you, did that important thing, have supported, have loved, and have constantly encouraged. In the chat, we're having conversations that people are just definitely worried about the future for their children. One of the questions is, do you feel online is a good place for a gifted learner? He can attend amazing classes that he can't get in brick and mortar, and he has always been misunderstood prior to COVID when he went online. So he gets social with tennis clinics. So what do we feel about online? Is that a great place to go and explore some new things?
Well, you know, you can learn. The internet is an infinite book of knowledge. You can be correct me if I'm wrong, but you can be a professor online as well. You can just be, someone who is, who has that knowledge, who has that title, but if they give out the information online, you can do these online masterclasses, or I don't know, they might, or like lectures and stuff for extremely gifted people at, Harvard or Stanford. They'll specifically call you in on like a Zoom call, whatever, and then that information will be passed down to people who are, as gifted as you are. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. I'm sure if he's been online, he's seen the bad side of it. It's not all green and rosy all the time. You definitely have to take care of yourself, not listen to other people. There's a lot of people out there for the wrong reasons. But I think if you just want to gain knowledge and you enjoy scrolling the internet and just absorbing all the stuff there is there to know, you would know a lot of things. And I think having a broad variety of knowledge is extremely helpful. Like for me personally, I do enjoy being online as well. And I'll see something that I never would have thought to go out to see if it was in book form. Like today, I watched a video about elephants. Now, I don't really go out and find elephant books in person at libraries or whatever. But now I know this stuff about elephants because I decided to watch this video. So yeah, I think it could be extremely beneficial. I think the more you know, the deeper you go. Obviously, the world is your oyster when it comes to the online. There is really nothing stopping you. The only limitation is how creative you are, really, how deep you're willing to go into these different topics. Yeah.
I love that.
I think schools could use online a lot more as well. I'm kind of thinking in this day and age with technology, when you have children learning in such different ways, there could be a case to be said for using AI maybe more for the actual teaching, and the teachers are more like coaches and supporters for the children. But with AI, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. You can go as high level, or when you have a whole class in front of you and you're trying to teach everybody the same thing, that kind of, I mean, it knocked me out in school. I can't remember anything I learned in school. I was so absent, and all my grades said, Charlotte, it's not present. She's not present. So my ADHD, for example, as a little girl, showed itself in me being away in my own world, which it very much does with girls. We're not jumping around in the same way. We're going very much into our own world very often. And therefore we don't get picked up. We also don't get thrown out of school because we're not bothering the teacher. We're just overly quiet, like too much, as if we're not there. But I read Winston Churchill's biography when I was like 13, 14 years old. Nobody knew that, but the stuff they told us about the Second World War in school was killing me. My brain, I just couldn't sit and learn in that way. So we shouldn't underestimate the ability to self-learn. And I think a lot of highly gifted children like that because it's a way. I worked in a library for 3 years, the best job I've ever had. I was surrounded by books. This was obviously before the internet, but I was in the books constantly, avid reader all the time. I couldn't get enough of sitting, just take one book after the other, and I always had at least 10 books going. But today I'm like Googling like a crazy woman, right? I just love that I can draw so much knowledge out of the internet. And I think it's our thirst for knowledge, and it never stops. And that's why online works for us to build up. And there's so many things you can learn. But as Giles said, it has its pitfalls as well, that, dark web is not great to get into, right? But, if you're on it a lot, you might also do some of that. So I think some guidance around it is good. But if you try to stop it, it'll probably just get worse, right?
Yeah, because there is that fear of too much time on the computer. And I totally agree with you, Charlotte. It really does depend on what it is they're actually doing. I think it is important for us as parents to be with our children a little more, to actually find out what they're doing when they're on the computer. I used the adage with my amazing human, I don't know how to do that, you show me. And so he used to love teaching me how to do just about everything. And even if I already knew how to do it, I would claim that I didn't. And that meant that we spent quality time on the computer while he showed me things. He now even teaches me games that he's playing on the computer, which of course I'm lousy at, but it's fine. He's now 28, and at 28, when he comes to visit, he will teach his mother things on the computer still. I think that's wonderful. So I think it's important for us then as parents to be involved in what it is our children are exploring. And then, like you said, Charlotte, the online is great, but if you can then take it to an in-person part, so if there is, as Giles mentioned, lots of universities offer courses that people can access, but then there are also events. So there may be an in-person masterclass, there may be something being held on at the university that your child is interested in that you can literally take them to. I know that a lot of universities offer summer courses. And so I always feel that a summer course is a great way for our 2E child to access things that are well beyond what they would be getting at in their grade level at school, and to get around minds that think the same as them, because that peer interaction is always important as well. What we know here at Bridges is that often it's being with people in your intellectual level that makes the difference, not necessarily people of your chronological age. And so if they're at your level and interested in what you're interested in, then, you know, life can be so much more interesting. So I definitely think that possibly as parents, getting involved in what your child's interested in. So the mom who's worried about her kid online too much, maybe go sit with him and get him to show you what he's doing. Because maybe then that will lead you to going and doing your own research and finding out if there's something in person, that would supplement or help build. But like Giles says, constantly exploring, I think, and then just introducing our children to new things, but ultimately just loving on them anyway and letting them explore till they have had enough. But I love that concept also. There's so much more to gaming than just playing the game. And I think for us as parents that don't know anything about gaming, maybe they should do courses on that to help us learn.
Yes.
You know, because one of my friends, her son's a game designer. I mean, he's phenomenal, the stuff that he can do. I don't know how he does it. But yeah, there's just...
use that again, in the construction company, they hired a game designer to design sort of a game of how to put the cranes when you do sort of skyscrapers, and they do have to have the crane if it's in tight space in a city where they just took one house down and you rebuild. You have to be very careful where you put the crane. So they put it in a game and then they move it around, and just like a game. And that's a job in construction to do that.
That's so cool. I love it. See, that there is just so much coming up. Actually, we are having some in person this year, yes, for our summer program. I'm not sure if the booklet's gone out as yet, but if you email me, maria.kennedy@bridges.edu, Janice, I will find out for you, okay? So she wanted to know if our summer program at Bridges is going to be in person this year. Aha, there you go. John let you know. So the catalogue will be out this week. So yeah, so we here at Bridges, we do interesting courses over the summer. I know one of my former students was doing a science biology thing at Caltech one summer, which was just like mind-blowing. The stuff that this child was doing age 9, I did not do at university. That's how far beyond me it was. And so I think it's really wonderful. I can't believe that we're running out of time. So we're down to our last 14 minutes, thankfully. Oh, there you go. So John's popped that in. So if you have any questions for Giles and Charlotte, and Giles or Charlotte, please pop them in the Q&A really quickly, because in about 10 minutes we will be out of time. So Charlotte, you realized, or you got your diagnosis late. What passions did you have earlier on? So you said you loved to read, and you were reading those governance books that obviously I can't read. But were there any other passions in between school and getting into governance?
I've always painted since I was very young. I was drawing a lot for hours and hours, just sitting drawing. I just liked things where I could be in my own world. I wasn't keen on having too many people around me at all. So my own world, quietness, silence. To still have a house that's very quiet. We don't have television, and none of us watches television actually. And I don't actually really put music on. I just like quietness and natural sounds. So I painted a lot. I painted throughout life. I then had a studio in London when we lived there, and went there to paint. I had some exhibitions every half years, sold some painting, got space to paint for more paintings. And I haven't painted for a little while now because I've been too busy, but I can feel that it's coming back up again. And I really enjoy that. It's just almost like meditation. It's a place that's just for me. And I enjoy that a lot. So I try to encourage my children as well to do to do art, or to just, we would sit and paint together as a family. We had a small house in France. We would sit there and just do paintings of random things, just because it's nice and relaxing. And Giles always had a very good way of putting the colors together, but he was so critical of himself with the shapes because the school and the teachers had been so critical around, you have to paint, to draw this. Like, I remember one teacher said, oh, this is a monster, and look, it doesn't have, Giles had got lots of scribbles in, and it looked quite just like scary, but it didn't, she said, but it doesn't have an eyes, nose, and a mouth. So I'm not like, so your monsters are human beings. That's interesting. I'm glad they're not my son's monsters, right? And so you see, this is what the wrong kind of teachers will tell your child, right? So a monster, a lot of black stuff is monstrous, right? But a human face, luckily my son wasn't feeling that was like a monster. You probably can't remember, Giles, I think you were only 4 or 5 years old. So specific teacher, she was very intolerant to, she just didn't understand any, it's like our intellect is not understood when we are young. And it's quite extraordinary. They can watch us do quite extraordinary things and still just say, but we can't teach them anything. And that's our fault that they can't teach us. I found that extraordinary. How many years have teachers spent in school becoming so-called educational experts, right? And still can't understand, an intelligent child sitting in front of them and how they're clearly learning the wrong things. We need to be able to educate in a much broader, much more universally broader way, where most of us, all of us, can be part of it. I was lost in that system completely. It was very hard for Giles as well in that system, despite being highly intelligent. And that's not acceptable, but it feels like a big system to fight against, which is partly what we want to do at the Institute of Neurodiversity, because we want 1 million members coming together, us and our allies, to actually go in and say, this is what we think about us. So would you care to listen what we think about us, as opposed to watching us as if we are some object that you want to write about, and then you want to decide that we need to be trained to be something we are not. The whole conversion training principles, it's like dog training. I had another passion. I was a dog trainer for 5 years. Yeah, I trained Rottweilers. I spent a lot of time doing that for 5 years.
Wow, quiet. We've got one. There was a squeeze in one last question. Could you be more specific about a child finding passions when they're younger? So like age 5 through 12. So how can that kid find their passions? Giles, what did you do?
For me, I got bought manga, which is like Japanese art things. Like they have their own stories, but they do it in the Japanese way. So it's like back to front. So you read from right to left. And it's a very unique way of like expressing a story. I got bought that by a former au pair we had, and I was just hooked instantly. I think I was 7 years old. I had one, and then I told her, like, I don't know where you bought this, but can you buy more? Please just buy more. I need to know what happens. And then that got me into like the whole Japanese culture. And now I've been addicted to that, just Japanese culture in general. So yeah, since I was 7 years old. So sometimes it can just come randomly, but like, I mean, every child, they like something. They might not know that they like it, but it might just take a little bit of, prodding to say, oh, that we went to this thing and they liked it. Maybe we'll go again to see what their reactions are. I think picking up on the little things as well can definitely help sometimes make things a bit more transparent. I know that when you're a child, everything is amazing. It's quite hard to distinguish things that they like genuinely, or things that they just think are cool because they're like 6 years old. So yeah, I think again, just really paying attention, focusing on the little things. And yeah, I think maybe Mum, you'd know that a little bit more than me.
Well, it was, I mean, you loved those mangas. You took them with you to the toilet. You were sitting in the toilet forever reading these books. You carried them around. Or this was before you had a phone, right?
Yeah.
And we went to Japan together, Giles and I, because he really wants to go to Japan. When my children go 18, they can choose where to go with me. They're stuck with me for that. And Giles wants to go to Japan. And we went into this place that had so many of these manga comics book, and I actually met a huge amount of autistic people who loves those Japanese mangas. There's something about them. I don't know what it is, Giles. What do you feel for you? What is it? The values? Something.
It's just so like, I don't really like watching series like Game of Thrones. Doesn't do it for me. It's like the fact that they're actual real human people. I can't get away from the fact that that's just a normal person. You know, I think, and because that's all just cartoon and it's not real, that really drew me in a bit more, because they have complete freedom over what the story is about and how deep and emotional they want it to be. And just the way they portray it, I think their storytelling is just decades ahead of the West. And because their stories and their imagery was just so captivating, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I was just like, wow, like this is just so much better. Yeah.
And it might be that feeds into our much wider sort of sensory band in a good way, right? So what I hear from so many of us is that we have this wider, our sensory band is this, and the neurotypicals is this. So we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, everything more, a lot more. So I smell things a lot. I can smell when people are ill. People smell very differently when they're. I thought everybody could smell because it's so obvious. But I realized that that's not the case. I mean, Giles has very highly sensitive hearing, but that's what makes him excellent at music composition, right? So we have these different skills. Maybe nature gave us that for a reason, and they have somehow been turned into disabilities, right? And I was like, okay, so you're telling me I've got a better developed smelling sense, and that's a disability? How does that work, right? I can tell you, in this world, you can become disenabled because the world is so overwhelming and so noisy, right? If it was a bit more built like people with a broader sensory band, and that's why we can be used as guiding lights for what's a good environment for the biggest amount of people. Well, use us as a guide to this is a built environment, this should be the noise levels, this should be what the lighting is like. And you will find that everyone can fit into that. While what we're doing now is we're having a very narrow way of building the world where a narrow band of people can exist in, but they are even themselves get stressed by this noise and everything around them. I mean, Microsoft, they did some checking around the neurodiversity employee resource group. Is about 5,000 people or so, and one of the leaders of that is in our steering group. And they have come up with examples to Microsoft for changes for the sort of whole sort of environment around them. And the changes they made from input from neurodivergent employees lifted the productivity of everybody. So this is something we need to look at. Even if you allow your child at home to guide what your home should be like, you might find that everybody is in a happier place, even yourself, if you have a narrow band. But because even with a narrow sensory band, it's still bothering you, but it's not, you don't feel it consciously. It's still there, but it takes longer before it actually bothers you enough for you to do something about it. So if we listen to the more sensitive, it's a bit like the canary in the coal mine, right?
Cool. So Giles, last 2 minutes, parting comments. What can you share finally on your passions that we can all take and go be actionable?
I think there's no right or wrong way about going about finding your passion and then pursuing it. I think the things that matter the most is don't be afraid to lose. It's all part of the journey. And another thing is support is the most important thing. If anyone, if you can get support from your parents, your friends, extended family, extended close friends, that really will make a big difference. I just think just don't give up. You'll get there eventually. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think if you love it enough, you will always be at the end of the tunnel, because it'll just feel so great and so magical that you're doing a thing that drives you. You've already reached the end of the tunnel. You're already in the light. And then it's, the more you do it, the brighter it gets, in my opinion. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. The more you do it, the brighter it gets. Oh, what a wonderful way to end. I cannot thank you both enough for joining me and our viewers today. I know I, for one, have learned an awful lot from you and from the feedback that we're getting in the chat. So have our viewers. So it's been an absolute pleasure and a joy getting answers to our questions. And I hope that our viewers are now all inspired to use your recommendations. So remember, though, if our guests during the series have made a difference for you or your family, please email me and share, because I would love to share it with them. Our email is crucialconversations@2ecenter.org. Yes, you will receive the recording to this. We record, and within 24 hours, all registered participants will get the link to the recording. Before we disappear, I would like to say a very, very special thank you to John. He works tirelessly behind the scenes. He didn't get the memo about a black t-shirt today, but his work speaks beyond his t-shirt requirements. His hard work and his expertise, and believe me, his patience with me, are the reason that this webcast happens. Next month, we will be meeting on April 26th. My guest will be Marisol Sinello from the Learning Rights Law Center. She helps parents to become advocates for their children. So next month, we're going to be discussing IEP advocacy tips. So lots of us have IEPs coming up. So please join the discussion, and let's continue to make a difference. Look forward to seeing you all next month. Make sure that you join me.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
Hit
you.
it, John. Oh.